Welcome back to Old Time Tales. We appreciate you listening to our story. I'm John, and we're doing part 4, The Devil of Daniel Webster by Stephen Benét. Part 4. And with that, the fire burned blue, and the door blew open, and 12 men entered, one by one. If Jabez Stone had been stuck with terror before, he was blind with terror now, for there was Walter Butler, the loyalist who spread fire and horror through the Mohawk Valley in the times of the Revolution. And there was Simon Girty, the renegade, who saw the white men burned at the stake and whooped with the Indians to see them burn. His eyes were green like a catamount's, and the stain in his hunting shirt did not come from the blood of the deer. King Philip was there, wild and proud as he had been in life, with a great gash in his head that gave him his death wound. Cruel Governor Dale, who broke men on the wheel. There was Morton of Marymount, who so vexed the Plymouth colony with his flush, loose, handsome face and his hate of the godly. There was Teach, the bloody pirate, with his black beard curling on his breast. The Reverend John Smeet, with his strangler hands and his Geneva gown, walked as daintily as he had to the gallows, the red print of the rope still around his neck. But he carried a perfumed handkerchief in one hand. One and all they came into the room, with the fires of hell still upon them, and the stranger named their names and their deeds as they come, till the tale of the 12 was told. Yet the stranger told the truth. They had all played a part in America. "Are you satisfied with the jury, Mr. Webster?" said the stranger mockingly when they had taken their places. The sweat stood upon Daniel Webster's brow, but his voice was clear. "Quite satisfied," he said, "though I miss General Arnold from the company." "Benedict Arnold is engaged upon other business," said the stranger with a glower. "Ah, you asked for a justice, I believe." He pointed his finger once more, and a tall man, soberly clad in Puritan garb, with the burning gaze of the fanatic, stalked into the room and took his judge's place. "Justice Hathorne is a jurist of experience," said the stranger. "He presided at certain witch trials once held in Salem. There were others who repented of the business later, but not he." "Repent of such notable wonders and undertakings," said the stern old justice. "Nay, hang 'em all." And he muttered to himself in a way that stuck ice into the soul of Jabez Stone. Then the trial began, and as you might expect, it didn't look anyways good for the defense. Jabez Stone didn't make much of a witness in his own behalf. He took one look at Simon Girty and screeched, and they had to put him back in his corner in a kind of swoon. It didn't halt the trial, though. The trial went on as trials do. Daniel Webster had faced some hard juries and hanging judges in his time, but this was the hardest he'd ever faced, and he knew it. They sat there with a kind of glitter in their eyes, and the stranger's smooth voice went on and on. Every time he'd raise an objection, it'd be "objection sustained." But whenever Daniel objected, it'd be "objection denied." Well, you couldn't expect fair play from a fellow like this Mr. Scratch. It got to Daniel in the end, and he began to heat like an iron in the forge. When he got up to speak, he was going to flay that stranger with every trick known to the law, and the judge and the jury too. He didn't care if it was a case of contempt of court or what would happen after him, and what would happen for it. He didn't care anymore what happened to Jabez Stone. He just got madder and madder, thinking of what he'd say, and yet, curiously enough, the more he thought about it, the less he was able to arrange the speech in his mind, till finally it was time for him to get up on his feet, and he did so, all ready to bust out with lightnings and denunciations. But before he started, he looked over at the judge and jury for just a moment, such as being his custom, and he noticed the glitter in their eyes was twice as strong as before, and they all leaned forward like hounds just before they get the fox. They looked, and the blue mist of evil in the room thickened as he watched them. Then he saw what he'd been about to do, and he wiped his forehead as a man who had just escaped falling into a pit in the dark. was him that he'd come for, not only Jabez Stone. He read it in the glitter of their eyes, and in the way the stranger hid his mouth with one hand. And if he fought them with their own weapons, he'd fall into their power. He knew that, though he couldn't have told you how. It was his own anger and horror that burned in their eyes, and he'd have to wipe that out, or the case was lost. He stood there for a moment, his black eyes burning like anthracite, and then he began to speak. He started off in a low voice, though you could hear every word. They say he could call on the harps of the blessed when he chose, and this was just as simple and easy as a man could talk. But he didn't start out by condemning or reviling. He was talking about the things that make a country, and a man, a man. And it began with the simple things that everybody's known and felt. The freshness of a fine morning when you're young, the taste of food when you're hungry, and the new day that's every day when you're a child. He took them up and he turned them in his hands. They were good things for any man. But without freedom, they sickened. And when he talked of those enslaved and the sorrows of slavery, his voice got like a big bell. He talked of the early days of America and the men who had made those days. It wasn't a spread eagle speech, but he made you see it. He admitted all the wrong that had ever been done, but he showed how, out of the wrong and the right, the suffering and the starvation, something new had come. And everybody had played a part of it, even the traitors. Then he turned to Jabez Stone and showed him as he was, an ordinary man who'd had hard luck and wanted to change it. And because he wanted to change it, now he was being punished for all eternity. And yet, there was good in Jabez Stone, and he showed that good. He was hard and mean in some ways, but he was a man. There was sadness in being a man, but it was a proud thing too. And he showed what that pride of it was and he showed what the pride of it was till you couldn't help feel it. Yes, even in hell, if a man was a man, you'd know it. And he wasn't pleading for any one person anymore, though his voice rang like an organ. He was telling the story of the failures and the endless journey of mankind. He got tricked and trapped and bamboozled, but it was a great journey, and no demon that was ever foaled would know the inwardness of it. It took a man to do that. And that's the end of part 4. Thank you very much. Hope you're enjoying Old Time Tales. I'll see you back for part 5.